Us to the papers now. Flo Villeminot is here to take us through the headlines in France.
Hella.
Morning to you too. Now, the papers here are focusing on the case of Vincent Lambert, the severely brain-damaged man at the heart of a bitter debate and a legal battle.
That's right. Now, yesterday, a medical team that was actually in charge on really deciding about his future, in a surprise move, said that they actually couldn't decide. They said that the calm and serene conditions needed to make the decision were just not there. So it's getting a lot of attention today. If we take a look at Le Figaro, they talk about the impossible decision. Essentially what doctors said is that they're actually facing security fears, and this has really hampered their ability to make a decision. But in its editorial, Libération really says this is such a difficult decision to make. They actually liken it to a Roman emperor at the circus, trying to decide the fate of somebody, you know, with their thumb, whether they raise it or they lower it. It's such a tough decision that's complicated by so many other factors. The fact that, for instance, there's this bitter family dispute that's going on because of Vincent Lambert's case, and also the whole media frenzy that's surrounding the case.
If let's look at the left-leaning Libération paper, though, they're quite critical of those security fears the doctors were talking about.
That's right, and these security fears are quite serious. Libération reminds readers that essentially pro-life activists have called for Lambert or members of his medical team to be kidnapped on a blog online. Libération is incredibly critical of those that are behind these threats, essentially hardcore traditional Catholics. You can see in their editorial today, they call them fundamentalists. They're just as bad as Islamist fundamentalists, according to Libération. What they're doing is essentially a form of verbal terrorism, and they're walking all over France's sacred principle of secularism, essentially. And Libération wonders, are these fundamentalists, are they going to be able to really bully French law and European law? Just to remind you about what the case is here in France, euthanasia is illegal, but under a 2005 passive euthanasia law, doctors do have the right to withdraw care, and initially that's what doctors wanted to do in Vincent Lambert's case.
Well, how's the Catholic paper La Croix reacting to all of this?
Well, as you can imagine, this is a hot-button issue for Catholics, and La Croix is pretty much walking on eggs today. They're remaining very factual. In the past, there have been several editorials about Vincent Lambert's case. Remember, this is a case that's been going on for quite some time, years actually. In the past, La Croix has made it very clear that they're very much against euthanasia. They've always focused on the human side of the story, saying that this is a heartbreaking story for Vincent Lambert's family. But you can see here today they're being quite cautious. They're just reporting about the facts. They're reporting here on the fact that his doctors have asked for Vincent Lambert to actually be placed under a form of judicial protection.
Let's move on to another story that's been in the headlines here in France. That's the angry farmers. They're angry about the falling prices, which they're blaming on big supermarket chains. And Le Parisien is focusing on another phenomenon, though, which could be threatening their livelihood.
That's right. If we take a look at Le Parisien, it's quite alarming today. It talks about the drought, red alert. It's been over 50 years since France has experienced a drought so early in the season. Water restrictions have actually been imposed in 56 French departments, and it doesn't look like the situation is going to get any better anytime soon. You can see that map there where there are those water restrictions. Now, this is bad for the fields. It can scorch fields. It's also bad for fruit. Fruit is growing right now, like apples and pears, and they need a lot of watering right now, and so that's not going to be happening. And it's also bad for the animals. Actually, it's a pretty funny cartoon in Le Parisien Aujourd'hui en France today where you can see two cows talking. One cow says, "There's no water around here," and the other cow says, "Well, we could go to the supermarket to buy some, but just like meat, it's very expensive."
Oh, well, ironic take there. Let's take a look at the communist paper L'Humanité. They're focusing on a very French tradition, the summer camp program. It's partially funded by the state.
That's right. These are les colonies de vacances, or la colo. That's the way it's known here in France. It's a very French tradition, a tradition that needs to be protected. That's what L'Humanité says on the front page. This is part of our heritage, according to L'Humanité. So these summer camps are partially funded by the state, and therefore they're relatively inexpensive, and therefore it opens up the possibility of a fun summer to poorer families. But L'Humanité inside tells us that over the past 20 years, colonies de vacances have been facing some major budget cuts, of course, because as the state has to cut its budget, well, it cuts the budget for colonies de vacances, and therefore there are fewer camps and fewer kids going to them, and they're staying for a smaller amount of time. But L'Humanité says everybody, whether they're rich or poor, should have a right to have a fun summer.
Let's finish up with a story about a very affectionate seal. This sounds good.
This is a very cute story. I could have done the whole press review on it because there's some great photos. You can read about it in Sud-Ouest. This is about a seal near Bordeaux. Now, this is a wild seal that became friends with surfers. In fact, they became such good friends that the surfers nicknamed it You, and they would play with you. You can see in these photos, they would actually let you get up on their surfboard with them. The problem is that You has grown up a lot. He weighs 120 kilos, so he's actually becoming a danger for swimmers and surfers. He was captured, and he's going to be reinserted into the wild.
Yeah, it looks like he's struggling on that surfboard there, doesn't he? Thanks very much, Florence Villeminot with the press review. You're watching France 24. Do stay with us. Lots more news is still to come.